chosen one. You are not here by accident, and this moment is not random. Long before you pressed play, this encounter was written into your prophetic scroll. Heaven has aligned this exact second because something sealed is beginning to open, and your spirit was summoned to be here. What you're feeling is not curiosity, it is recognition. The appointed hour on heaven's clock has arrived, and you're standing at the edge of a destined moment that has been waiting for you since before you were born. Chosen one. There are seasons written by God that do not respond to striving, only to timing. Scripture declares in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 1 that there is a time for every purpose under heaven, and this is not an ordinary time. This is a kairos moment. A moment when what was delayed is released, when what was hidden is revealed, and when what was dormant is awakened. The vision has been waiting for its appointed time, just as Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 declares, and now it is speaking. Anointed one, you may feel it already, a stirring in your spirit, a holy urgency, a quiet knowing that something is about to shift today, tonight, or in the coming days. This is an opening invocation, a sacred summons, a divine unlocking. Prepare your heart, steady your breath, and listen with your spirit. Transformation is not approaching, it is activating. This is your moment, and heaven is watching how you respond. Chosen one in the spirit realm. Blue is not merely a color you see with your eyes, it is a language. Heaven speaks to your soul. Blue carries the frequency of divine revelation, the authority of heaven and the justice of God, moving quietly but decisively through human lives. When you look at the sky stretching endlessly above you, or the sea holding depths no one can fully measure, you are looking at a reflection of how God moves in you. There is depth you have not yet explored, authority you have not yet exercised, and clarity that has been waiting for the appointed hour. The blue power is not loud, it does not announce itself with spectacle, and it does not need permission from the world to operate. It is the calm confidence that comes from knowing heaven backs you, even when the room doubts you. Anointed one blue is a signal. It is the vibration of heaven's voice echoing inside your spirit when everything around you is noisy. I have learned this personally in seasons when nothing on the outside made sense, when plans failed and people misunderstood me, yet there was a steady knowing inside that refused to panic. That knowing did not come from logic or strategy, it came from alignment. That is the blue power. It is the authority to remain anchored when circumstances shift. It is the courage to walk forward when your identity is questioned. It is the clarity to see what others overlook because they are too distracted to discern. Chosen one. The blue power is not about control, it is about presence. You may have noticed this without having words for it. When you enter certain spaces, the atmosphere settles. Conversations soften. Tension eases. People feel safe without knowing why. This is not charisma, and it is not coincidence. This is spiritual authority flowing through stillness. I have seen this happen in ordinary moments, sitting across from someone at a table, standing in a quiet room, walking into a space heavy with unspoken conflict. No sermon, no advice, no performance, just presence. That is how divine order moves, quietly, accurately, without force. This message is not for everyone, and you already know that. The blue power is not given randomly. If you are hearing this, it is because something in you has always known you carry more than what people see. You may have struggled to explain it. You may have tried to downplay it to fit in. You may have wondered why applause never mattered as much to you as depth. The truth is, the blue power does not chase attention. It does not rise through noise. It moves through humility and obedience. Heaven has never overlooked you even when people did. From an early age you sensed it. Something about you did not blend easily. You tried to follow the patterns, adopt the language, mirror the behaviors, but your spirit resisted. I remember doing the same, trying to silence that inner whisper just to belong, only to feel more disconnected every time I succeeded. That whisper was never rebellion. It was recognition. God was setting you apart, not to isolate you, but to prepare you. Only those who are set apart can carry what has been set aside. Chosen one you perceive before others speak. You feel shifts before they happen. You walk into rooms and sense what is hidden beneath words and smiles. You may have dismissed it as intuition, coincidence, or being overly sensitive, but it is discernment. It is a spiritual radar God placed inside you to help you navigate realms others ignore. This discernment has protected you even when it confused you. It has also isolated you, because not everyone understands what you sense. You were never meant to explain it to everyone. You were meant to trust it and walk with heaven's confirmation rather than human approval. People are drawn to you for reasons they cannot explain. They ask for your insight. They open up unexpectedly. They look to you even when you are quiet. You do not seek leadership, yet leadership follows you. This is not ambition, it is mantle. The presence of God rests on you in a way that shifts environments. Scripture speaks of being a thermostat rather than a thermometer, and that is what you are. You do not react to atmospheres, you change them. Chosen one. If you have ever been told you feel too deeply, hear this clearly. Your emotional depth is not weakness, it is capacity. You feel pain, beauty, injustice, and compassion intensely because the blue power flows through empathy. I have learned that healing often happens not through words, but through being present with someone's pain without trying to fix it. That ability is divine. It is evidence of a heart trusted with weight. Your life has not been easy, and that is not an accident. The battles, the delays, the betrayals were not random misfortune. They were strategic resistance. The enemy always targets what carries authority. If darkness has pressed against you, it is because light threatens it. But you survived, and survival itself is proof. Every storm refined you. Every attack confirmed your assignment. Chosen one. If this resonates, it is because your sealed scroll is stirring. This is not hype, this is activation, and we are only beginning. Chosen one. There are dreams you have had that stayed with you long after you woke up, dreams that felt heavier than imagination and clearer than memory. They were not random scenes created by a restless mind. They were communications. The blue power speaks first in the quiet places because noise dulls discernment. I remember seasons when my nights carried more instruction than my days, when symbols returned again and again until I finally stopped dismissing them. That was not confusion. That was alignment beginning to form beneath awareness, gently training the spirit to listen. You may have experienced sudden inner nudges that made no logical sense at the time. A pull to pray, to pause, to avoid a path, or to reach out to someone unexpectedly. Later, clarity followed and protection revealed itself. That is how heaven guides those it trusts. The blue power does not shout, it whispers with precision. When you begin to honor those whispers, your hearing sharpens and direction becomes steadier. You are not wandering, you are being led step by step according to divine timing. Chosen one, carrying this power makes you intolerant of deception. Lies disturb your spirit, even when they benefit you. Corruption feels heavy in your chest, even when it is normalized around you. You cannot pretend not to see what you see. This is not rebellion or judgment. It is righteous sensitivity. The fire you feel when truth is violated is not anger, it is alignment with justice. You were designed to bring light into spaces where confusion has been allowed to settle for too long. You may have stumbled along the way. There were moments you questioned. God questioned yourself and wondered if you had disqualified your calling. Yet somehow you always returned. That pullback was not guilt. It was belonging. The blue power calls you home again and again because covenant is stronger than failure. I have learned that availability matters more than perfection. Heaven does not wait for flawlessness. It responds to surrender. There is a holy restlessness inside you that has never been satisfied by surface-level success. You may have achieved things others celebrate, yet something deeper still calls. That hunger is not ingratitude, it is memory. Your spirit remembers a depth you have not fully lived yet. The blue power remains dormant when the soul chases applause, but it awakens when the heart seeks meaning. When ambition quiets, assignment speaks. Chosen one. Your presence here is not coincidence. Of all the content you could be consuming, you are here because recognition is taking place. Even if questions remain in your mind, your spirit already knows. This feels familiar because it is. What you are sensing is not something new entering you, but something ancient rising. It was written into you before language shaped your thoughts. These signs are not personality traits. They are markers. They are evidence that heaven has been shaping you through hidden seasons, strengthening you when no one applauded, preserving you when others fell away. This is not hype or emotional manipulation. This is revelation. The blue power is real, and awareness is the first unlocking. You may wonder why this power has not fully expressed itself yet. The answer is timing. Divine timing protects purpose. Like seeds beneath soil, preparation happens in darkness. I have learned that delay often saves us from using power without wisdom. Character is forged quietly, so authority can be carried safely. What felt like waiting was actually building. Now the atmosphere is shifting. The season of concealment is thinning. There is resistance around your identity because awakening threatens structures built on silence. The enemy does not fear your position or resources. He fears your clarity. That is why distractions attack your focus and fatigue targets your rest. But awareness breaks those patterns. The blue power cannot be purchased or taught. It unlocks when you see yourself as heaven sees you. As that alignment forms, lies begin to fall. Fear loosens its grip. Shame loses its voice. Even now something is lifting, not because you forced it, but because heaven decided the moment had come. This awareness marks the turning point your soul has awaited. Chosen one. Stillness is the doorway through which the blue power begins to surface with clarity and authority. Not the stillness of inactivity, but the kind that strips away noise, urgency, and the constant need to prove something. I learned this in seasons where nothing externally was moving yet. Internally, everything was being rearranged. When life forced me to slow down, when plans collapsed and distractions were removed, I realized how much of my identity had been tied to motion instead of alignment. In those quiet stretches, something deeper began to rise, not loudly, but steadily, like a current that had always been there waiting for permission to flow. Stillness exposes what distraction protects. That is why many avoid it. Silence brings buried fears, unresolved grief, and unanswered questions to the surface. But it also brings truth. The blue power responds to truth more than effort. When you sit in stillness and invite God to show you what He placed inside you, you are not asking for something new. You are consenting to remember. I remember moments when answers did not come as words, but as peace that made the questions lose their grip. That peace was not passive, it was authority settling into place. Chosen one. Your words matter more than you have been taught, not because they are motivational, but because they align realms. The blue power flows where agreement exists between your spirit and heaven. What you speak consistently becomes the framework through which you interpret reality. I have watched seasons shift simply because I stopped narrating my life through fear and started declaring alignment even when circumstances lagged behind. This was not denial. It was orientation. The inner world sets the direction long before the outer world responds. Courage in this context is not dramatic. It looks like having conversations you postponed, releasing identities that once kept you safe, and stepping away from cycles that no longer fit who you are becoming. The blue power follows faith in motion. It does not activate fully while waiting for comfort. It moves when obedience takes the first step. Many delays are not about timing, but about hesitation. Once alignment is chosen, movement follows naturally. Releasing the past is not optional in this process. Old pain competes with new authority. I learned this when I realized how often past wounds were shaping present reactions. Forgiveness is not about excusing harm, it is about clearing space. The blue power requires a clean channel. When resentment, shame, or regret linger, authority leaks. Letting go is not weakness, it is structural integrity. Staying close to the source matters more than effort. The blue power does not respond to hustle or performance. It responds to intimacy. Time in quiet reflection, time listening rather than asking, time allowing the spirit to guide instead of forcing outcomes. This is how identity stabilizes. You begin to recognize yourself beneath the layers built for survival. The more aligned you become, the less reactive you feel. Emotional storms lose their power because clarity holds the center. Chosen one. When alignment deepens, things begin to open without struggle. Opportunities appear without chasing. People recognize your presence without explanation. Ideas flow without strain. This is not favor earned through effort. It is fruit produced through alignment. Your inner world settles, and with that stability comes discernment. You no longer confuse urgency with importance. You begin to sense what carries peace beneath pressure and what carries pressure beneath excitement. Your voice begins to change, not in volume, but in weight. When you speak, it lands. When you are silent, it still communicates. This is not dominance, it is resonance. You are no longer trying to be heard, you are being recognized. Rooms respond to presence more than performance, and presence grows from alignment. Most importantly, you begin to feel like yourself again. Not the version shaped by expectation, but the version heaven designed before survival demanded masks. That return is not dramatic. It is grounding. You stop performing for validation and start moving from identity. The blue power activates most clearly when you no longer need to convince anyone of who you are. There will be moments when misunderstanding increases. Not everyone celebrates clarity. Some are unsettled by it. You may feel tempted to shrink to preserve comfort, but shrinking never protects calling. The blue power teaches you to stand without striving to speak, without defending, and to move without explaining. This posture is learned through lived experience, through choosing integrity when compromise is easier and obedience when silence feels safer. Spiritual authority is tested before it is trusted. Testing refines posture. It teaches discernment between opportunity and distraction. I have walked through doors that looked promising but drained life, and ignored doors that seemed insignificant but carried alignment. The blue power sharpens that awareness. It trains you to value peace over applause. Your sensitivity will deepen, not fade. You will feel atmospheres more clearly. This is not a burden, it is a tool. Sensitivity paired with boundaries becomes wisdom. You are learning when to engage and when to withdraw. Withdrawal is not retreat, it is positioning. Even Jesus withdrew before stepping into visible movement. The blue power follows that rhythm. Obscurity will no longer threaten you. Hidden seasons build roots. When recognition comes, it will not intoxicate you because your foundation was formed without applause. That foundation allows you to carry influence without losing humility, and authority without losing compassion. As this alignment settles, old patterns lose their appeal. Shallow pursuits feel empty. Noise feels exhausting. This is not judgment. It is graduation. Heaven is repositioning you for deeper stewardship. The blue power is not rushing you forward. Chosen one, as the blue power continues to awaken you, may notice that your relationship with time itself begins to change. You no longer feel pressured by the world's urgency or panicked by delays the way you once did. There is a quiet knowing settling in a sense that heaven is not late and neither are you. I remember a season when everything around me seemed stalled while others surged ahead, and yet something inside remained calm. That calm was not resignation. It was trust forming. Divine timing does not rush because it does not compete. The blue power aligns you with that rhythm where patience is not passive but powerful. You begin to understand that hidden seasons were not punishment, they were protection. What felt like being overlooked was actually being preserved. In those seasons, motives are purified, attachments are loosened, and identity is rooted beyond applause. I learned that if certain doors had opened earlier, I would have entered them with insecurity rather than authority. Timing saved me from carrying responsibility before I could steward it. The blue power honors readiness more than desire. As this awareness deepens, you also become more conscious of spiritual resistance. Not everything that opposes you is meant to stop you. Some resistance is confirmation. When clarity increases, pressure often follows, not to destroy you, but to test your posture. I have felt that pressure moments when doubt whispered louder, precisely because alignment was strengthening. That pressure exposed where I was still seeking validation rather than resting in identity. Each time I chose alignment, the pressure lost its grip. Chosen one. There is a war over your identity, not your image. The enemy does not fear your status or success. He fears your clarity, your ability to see truth and speak it without distortion. That is why distractions target your focus and fatigue targets your rest. When rest is compromised, discernment dulls. Protecting your rest is not laziness, it is warfare. The blue power flows most clearly through a rested spirit. Awareness is the doorway to unlocking. The moment you begin to see yourself as heaven sees you, authority starts to move. Lies lose their power when light enters. Fear weakens when truth is named. I have watched internal chains fall simply because a lie was finally recognized for what it was. Freedom often begins with clarity, not effort. The blue power responds immediately to alignment of identity. There is an invitation here not to strive, but to align. Stillness remains essential even as movement increases. Alignment requires regular recalibration. Quiet moments are not pauses from purpose, they are how purpose stays clean. I learned that without stillness, even good intentions drift. With stillness, direction sharpens. The blue power thrives where listening outweighs speaking. Your declarations continue to matter. Not declarations made to impress others, but those spoken privately when no one is watching. Life and direction align through what you consistently agree with. When you declare alignment over fear, peace over panic, obedience over control, you reinforce heaven's order in your inner world. That inner order eventually manifests externally. This is not instant, but it is inevitable. Courage will be required in subtle ways. You may be asked to say no where you once said yes, to step back where you once pushed forward, or to speak when silence once felt safer. The blue power does not always lead you into visibility immediately. Sometimes it leads you into restraint. That restraint builds authority. Authority carried without restraint becomes force. Authority carried with restraint becomes influence. Chosen one relationships may shift as alignment deepens. Some connections fall away not because of conflict, but because resonance changes. This can feel lonely if misunderstood. I have walked through that loneliness, wondering if I was losing people or simply outgrowing patterns. In time, clarity replaced grief. Space made room for connections aligned with purpose rather than comfort. The blue power draws what matches it. You will also notice an increase in confirmation. Small moments align. Conversations echo thoughts you had in private. Timing becomes precise. These are not coincidences. They are signals that heaven is active in your awareness. Pay attention without obsessing. Discernment grows through observation, not anxiety. Your role is not to force outcomes, but to remain positioned. Positioned in truth, positioned in obedience, positioned in humility. Influence flows naturally from positioning. When the moment arrives for visible movement, you will not need to announce it. It will unfold with peace rather than chaos. The blue power matures your emotional responses. Triggers lose intensity. Reactions soften. You respond rather than react. This is not numbness, it is mastery. Emotional mastery allows clarity to lead decisions. I learned that emotional regulation is not suppression, it is stewardship. You feel deeply, but you are no longer governed by every wave. As this maturity settles, your confidence becomes quieter but stronger. You no longer need to convince others of your calling. You recognize that authority speaks through consistency, not volume. Your life begins to testify without explanation. That testimony carries weight because it is lived, not performed. Chosen one, you are stepping into a season where alignment becomes lifestyle. This does not mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes clear. Challenges no longer confuse your identity. Delays no longer threaten your trust. Resistance no longer surprises you. You move with awareness rather than urgency. Chosen one, as the blue power continues to mature within you, something subtle but unmistakable begins to shift in how responsibility rests on your soul. What once felt heavy, confusing, or overwhelming no longer presses on you in the same way. The weight has not disappeared, but you are carrying it differently. I remember a time when even small decisions drained me, not because they were difficult, but because I was still looking outward for confirmation. As alignment deepened, I noticed that clarity did not always arrive with certainty, but peace arrived first. And that peace became enough to move forward. You are learning that divine authority does not require full visibility of the path. The blue power trains you to trust direction before explanation. There will be moments when obedience asks you to move without understanding why, and that can feel unsettling if you were taught to rely only on logic. Yet faith is not the rejection of wisdom, it is the alignment of wisdom with heaven's timing. When you move from that place, outcomes may surprise you, but they rarely destabilize you. Chosen one. Pressure itself begins to change its role in your life. Where pressure once felt like a threat, it now feels like a signal, not a warning to retreat, but an invitation to expand. I remember seasons when pressure made me want to simplify everything just to feel relief, only to realize later that pressure was revealing areas where growth was necessary. The blue power does not remove pressure. It anchors you, so pressure no longer defines you. When resistance rises and you remain steady, authority strengthens. Your appetite is also changing. What once entertained you now feels hollow. Conversations that once filled time now drain energy. This is not arrogance or detachment, it is discernment sharpening. Your spirit is learning to distinguish between what distracts and what nourishes. I struggled with guilt during this transition, wondering if I was becoming distant or ungrateful. Over time, I understood that intentionality had replaced tolerance. The blue power refines appetite so that what feeds your purpose remains and what drains it loses appeal. With refined appetite comes stewardship. You become more mindful of how you spend time, where you place attention, and which voices you allow influence. Not every invitation is meant to be accepted. Not every opportunity is meant to be pursued. Saying no becomes an act of alignment rather than rejection. This discernment preserves energy so that when the moment for action comes, you are present rather than depleted. Chosen. One, humility deepens as authority grows. This is one of the clearest markers of authentic alignment. True authority does not seek validation. It does not announce itself. It rests quietly and speaks through consistency. I learned that when humility leads, favor follows naturally. When humility is absent, even success feels burdensome. The blue power anchors you in humility, so influence never replaces identity. You may also notice that memories from past seasons resurface, not to wound you, but to integrate you. Moments that once felt like loss or failure begin to reveal their purpose. This reframing does not erase pain, it completes it. Healing often finishes its work when understanding finally catches up with experience. The blue power allows you to look back without being pulled backward, to remember without reliving. As this integration settles, confidence becomes embodied rather than performed. You no longer rehearse who you are, you live from it. This embodiment changes how others respond to you. Conversations become clearer, boundaries become respected. Resistance decreases, not because you assert dominance, but because consistency builds trust. Trust opens doors that effort alone cannot. Chosen one, conflict no longer destabilizes you the way it once did. You do not rush to defend or withdraw. You pause, you listen, you respond with clarity rather than reaction. This does not mean you avoid confrontation. It means confrontation no longer controls you. Peace becomes internal rather than conditional. Emotional regulation shifts from suppression to stewardship. You still feel deeply, but emotion no longer dictates direction. Your relationship with prayer also evolves. Requests give way to communion. Silence becomes as meaningful as speech. You find yourself listening more than asking, sensing more than striving. This listening sharpens discernment and aligns desire with assignment. The blue power thrives in relationship, not transaction. It responds to intimacy, not performance. Gratitude begins to rise without obvious cause. Not gratitude for outcomes, but gratitude for alignment itself. This gratitude stabilizes vision. It keeps you grounded in the present while trusting the future. I learned that gratitude guards against both arrogance and despair. It keeps the heart soft while the spirit grows strong. Chosen one. This season is shaping you into someone who can carry more without losing yourself. That is the true measure of readiness. Expansion is not about capacity alone. It is about stability. The blue power stabilizes identity, so growth does not fracture you. Nothing here is rushed. Nothing is wasted. Every internal adjustment is intentional, forming a foundation that can sustain what is coming without compromising who you are. Chosen one, as the blue power settles deeper into your daily life, you may begin to notice that your sense of direction no longer depends on external validation. You are not waiting for applause, permission, or confirmation the way you once did. There is an internal steadiness forming a quiet confidence that does not announce itself, but guides your steps with precision. I remember realizing this shift when decisions stopped feeling like gambles and started feeling like responses. Even when outcomes were uncertain, my spirit was not. That certainty did not come from control, it came from alignment. You are learning to recognize the difference between movement driven by anxiety and movement guided by obedience. Anxiety pushes, obedience invites. Anxiety demands speed, obedience honors timing. The blue power recalibrates your pace so you no longer confuse urgency with importance. You may still move quickly at times, but the movement feels clean, not frantic. There is space to breathe even in momentum. That space is where discernment lives. Chosen one. Your intuition is sharpening, but it is also becoming quieter. This may feel strange if you were accustomed to strong emotional signals guiding you. Now, the guidance feels calmer, subtler, yet more accurate. I learned that clarity does not always come with intensity. Sometimes it arrives as a simple knowing that does not argue with itself. The blue power trains you to trust that knowing without over-analyzing it. When clarity repeats itself gently, it is often more reliable than urgency shouting for attention. Your boundaries continue to strengthen not as walls, but as filters. You are less reactive to opinions, less pulled by comparison, less shaken by misunderstanding. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop absorbing what was never meant to shape you. The blue power teaches you how to remain open without being porous. That balance protects your energy and preserves your focus. Chosen one service begins to take on a new meaning. You are no longer driven by the need to prove usefulness. You serve because overflow exists, not because worth is questioned. I remember serving from exhaustion in earlier seasons, believing sacrifice meant depletion. Now service feels different. It flows from fullness rather than obligation. The blue power shifts service from survival into stewardship. You may notice that your compassion deepens while your tolerance for dysfunction decreases. This is not contradiction. It is maturity. You can love people without enabling patterns that harm them or you. This discernment can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you were conditioned to equate love with self-abandonment. The blue power corrects that distortion. Love becomes clear, not entangled. As alignment continues, patience strengthens. Waiting no longer feels like punishment, it feels purposeful. I learned that impatience often came from fear of being forgotten. When identity stabilizes, waiting becomes restful because trust replaces urgency. The blue power anchors you in the understanding that what is meant for you does not bypass you. Timing is not something you chase, it is something you meet. Chosen one. Your perception of success also evolves. Success is no longer defined solely by visible outcomes. It is measured by peace, integrity, and alignment. There were moments when external progress looked impressive, but internal unrest lingered. Now the opposite begins to happen. Even when progress seems modest, peace confirms alignment. That peace becomes the metric you trust. You may also notice that teaching moments emerge naturally. People ask questions without prompting. They seek your perspective without explanation. This is not because you have rehearsed answers. It is because lived clarity speaks. I have learned that the most impactful guidance comes from experience integrated, not theory repeated. The blue power expresses itself through authenticity rather than performance. Your faith becomes embodied rather than conceptual. It is no longer something you explain first. It is something you live. This embodiment creates consistency between belief and behavior. When challenges arise, you respond from principle rather than impulse. This does not make life predictable, but it makes you anchored. Chosen one. There may still be moments of doubt. Alignment does not erase humanity, but doubt no longer defines direction. It becomes a signal to pause, reflect, and realign rather than retreat. I learned that doubt often surfaces when new levels of responsibility approach. Instead of fearing it, you learn to listen to what it reveals. Often, it is simply inviting deeper trust. Gratitude continues to mature into a posture rather than a reaction. You find yourself grateful for clarity even when clarity asks for change. You become grateful for pruning even when it costs comfort. This gratitude strengthens resilience. It keeps your heart open while your resolve strengthens. As this part of the journey settles, you may feel less urgency to explain yourself. Silence becomes comfortable. Presence speaks. The blue power does not require constant expression. It operates effectively, even when unseen. This allows you to conserve energy and move strategically rather than emotionally. Chosen one. You are becoming someone who carries authority without force, clarity without arrogance, and compassion without compromise. This integration is not dramatic. It is steady. It is sustainable. The blue power is not rushing you forward. It is teaching you how to remain aligned as movement increases, ensuring that when expansion comes, it does not pull you out of yourself, but flows through you naturally, exactly as heaven intended. Chosen one. As you continue walking with the blue power awakened and active, you may notice a deeper refinement taking place in how you relate to purpose itself. Purpose no longer feels like something you must chase or figure out through constant effort. It begins to feel like something you cooperate with. There is a difference. Chasing creates exhaustion. Cooperation creates flow. I remember a season when I was obsessed with finding my purpose, measuring every step against future outcomes, only to realize later that purpose was already present in how I showed up each day. The blue power gently corrects this misunderstanding. Purpose is not ahead of you. It is expressed through you moment by moment as alignment deepens. You are learning that obedience is often quiet. It does not always look heroic or dramatic. Sometimes it looks like consistency when no one notices, integrity when compromise would be rewarded, patience when shortcuts are available. These small obediences accumulate authority. I have seen how unseen faithfulness builds a foundation that visible success cannot replace. The blue power honors what is done in secret because heaven measures differently than the world. What feels small now is often what sustains you later. Chosen. 1. Your sense of identity continues to solidify beyond roles and seasons. You are no longer defined by what you do, what you produce, or how others respond. This freedom is subtle but profound. When identity detaches from performance, fear loosens its grip. I learned that many of my anxieties were tied to maintaining an image rather than stewarding a calling. Once that shifted, peace followed. The blue power anchors identity so deeply that circumstances lose the ability to shake it. You may notice that your reactions to change are calmer. Change no longer feels like threat. It feels like movement within a larger order. Even unexpected shifts carry less panic because trust has grown. This does not mean you enjoy every change. It means change no longer destabilizes you. The blue power teaches you to remain centered while life rearranges itself around you. Your discernment regarding people deepens as well. You begin to sense alignment beyond words. You notice who brings clarity and who brings confusion, who strengthens your focus and who scatters it. This awareness is not judgment, it is stewardship. I learned that proximity matters. Not everyone meant well is meant to walk closely. The blue power helps you honor relationships without forcing access. Distance becomes intentional rather than reactive. Chosen 1. Your leadership style evolves naturally. You lead less by instruction and more by example. People observe how you carry pressure, how you respond to setbacks, how you remain grounded in uncertainty. This quiet leadership builds trust. I have seen how consistency influences more deeply than charisma. The blue power expresses authority through steadiness rather than intensity. Your creativity may also awaken in new ways. Ideas surface unexpectedly. Solutions appear without strain. This creativity does not feel frantic. It feels inspired. When alignment is present, creativity flows as an extension of clarity. I learned that creativity thrives when the mind is not crowded by fear. The blue power clears mental space so inspiration can move freely. There may be moments when you are tempted to compare your pace with others. This comparison usually arises when growth is internal rather than visible. Remember that alignment is not always obvious externally. Some seasons are about depth rather than display. The blue power reminds you that roots grow quietly. Fruit appears later. Comparing early growth to visible harvest creates unnecessary pressure. Chosen 1. Your resilience strengthens through lived experience. Challenges no longer convince you that you are off course. They prompt reflection rather than retreat. I learned that resilience is not about enduring endlessly. It is about adapting wisely. The blue power teaches flexibility without compromising values. You learn when to persist and when to adjust. Your emotional world continues to mature. Feelings still arise, but they no longer dictate direction. You feel fully without being governed by every emotion. This balance is learned, not forced. Emotional intelligence becomes spiritual stewardship. The blue power allows you to honor emotion without surrendering authority to it. You may also experience moments of solitude that feel different than before. Solitude no longer feels empty. It feels restorative. Silence becomes companion rather than absence. I learned that solitude is where integration happens. What you receive in interaction settles in solitude. The blue power uses solitude to recalibrate alignment. As this season unfolds, gratitude becomes quieter but deeper. You are less reactive in celebration and more grounded in appreciation. Gratitude becomes less about outcomes and more about presence. This stabilizes joy. Joy no longer spikes and crashes, it settles. Chosen one, you are becoming someone who trusts process without losing expectation. Hope remains alive without demanding timelines. Faith becomes steady rather than urgent. This steadiness prepares you to carry influence without distortion. The blue power continues to work beneath the surface, strengthening foundation, refining posture, and aligning identity. Nothing here is accidental, nothing is wasted. Each layer integrates with the next, preparing you to move forward with clarity that is lived, not performed, and authority that flows naturally from alignment rather than effort. Chosen one, as the blue power continues its quiet work within you, you may begin to sense a deepening integration between who you are becoming and how you live each ordinary day. There is less separation now between the spiritual and the practical, between sacred moments and routine responsibilities. I remember realizing that alignment was no longer something I visited during prayer or reflection, but something I carried into conversations, decisions, and even mundane tasks. The blue power does not only activate in moments of intensity, it settles into consistency. It teaches you that holiness is not an event, it is a posture carried through daily life. You begin to notice that your choices feel cleaner, not necessarily easier, but clearer. There is less internal debate, less second-guessing, less mental noise after decisions are made. This clarity does not come from having all the answers. It comes from trusting the alignment you are walking in. When alignment is strong, even imperfect decisions can be corrected without shame. I learned that fear of making mistakes often kept me stuck longer than mistakes ever did. The blue power releases you from paralysis by reminding you that growth includes course correction. Chosen one, your relationship with authority also matures. You no longer resist authority out of fear, nor do you submit blindly out of insecurity. You discern. You honor what is aligned and question what is not without rebellion or passivity. This balance took time for me to learn. I had to unlearn extremes. The blue power teaches you to stand firm without becoming rigid and to remain teachable without becoming dependent. Authority becomes something you recognize, not something you fear. You may also notice that your sensitivity to spiritual atmosphere increases in practical environments, workspaces, homes, social settings. You sense when something is off, when alignment is present, when tension is unspoken. This sensitivity is not meant to overwhelm you, it is meant to guide you. The blue power helps you respond appropriately rather than absorb everything indiscriminately. You learn when to speak, when to pray quietly, and when to simply remain present without engaging. This discernment protects your energy and sharpens your effectiveness. Chosen one, your confidence becomes less reactive to external feedback. Praise no longer inflates you. Criticism no longer collapses you. This emotional neutrality is not indifference, it is stability. I remember the relief of realizing that my worth was no longer being negotiated in every interaction. That stability created freedom. When you are not trying to prove yourself, you can actually be yourself. The blue power anchors you so deeply that external fluctuations lose influence. As stability grows, courage expresses itself more consistently, not as bold declarations, but as faithful follow-through. You do what you said you would do. You show up even when motivation fluctuates. Integrity becomes natural rather than forced. I learned that integrity is less about dramatic moral stands and more about daily consistency. The blue power reinforces this consistency by aligning desire with discipline. Your understanding of success continues to refine. You begin to measure progress by faithfulness rather than speed, by alignment rather than recognition. This does not diminish ambition, it purifies it. Ambition rooted in alignment becomes sustainable. I noticed that when ambition was cleansed of comparison, creativity expanded. There was room to build without anxiety, to create without rushing. The blue power gives ambition a backbone of peace. Chosen one, you may also notice a deeper compassion emerging for others who are still navigating confusion. Not pity, but understanding. You remember what it felt like to be unsure, to wrestle internally, to question timing. This compassion does not pull you backward. It informs how you engage. You listen more patiently. You judge less quickly. The blue power matures empathy, so it does not entangle you but enriches your interactions. Your communication style may shift as well. You speak more simply. You explain less. Truth becomes more concise. I learned that clarity does not require excessive words. When alignment is present, language becomes efficient. Silence becomes comfortable. You no longer fill space out of discomfort. This restraint gives weight to what you do say. There may still be moments of internal testing. Alignment does not remove tension entirely. It changes how you meet it. When uncertainty arises, you return to stillness rather than scrambling for answers. You have learned that clarity often follows rest. The blue power reinforces this rhythm. Action flows from stillness. Movement follows listening. Chosen one. Your faith becomes quieter but stronger. You no longer need dramatic signs to trust direction. Subtle confirmations are enough. A sense of peace, a repeated nudge, a consistent inner knowing. This faith is not fragile. It does not collapse under delay. It rests in trust. I learned that faith matures when it no longer needs to be constantly reassured. As this integration deepens, your life begins to feel more coherent, less fragmented. You are not switching identities depending on context. The same clarity follows you into every space. This coherence is one of the greatest fruits of alignment. It reduces exhaustion. It preserves joy. It allows you to live from wholeness rather than compartmentalization. Chosen one. The blue power continues to work quietly, steadily, faithfully. It is not rushing you. It is establishing you. Layer by layer, posture by posture, it is forming a foundation that can sustain what lies ahead without strain or distortion. You are not becoming someone else. You are becoming whole. Chosen one. As the blue power continues to settle into who you are, you may begin to notice that your inner life feels less fragmented. There is a growing sense of coherence between thought, emotion, and action. You are no longer living in pieces, switching masks, depending on who is watching or what is required. I remember realizing this shift when I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head long after they ended. My mind grew quieter, not because problems disappeared, but because alignment reduced internal conflict. When who you are and how you live begin to agree, peace becomes structural rather than situational. You start to recognize that many of the battles you once fought were not external at all. They were internal negotiations between fear and calling, between comfort and obedience. As alignment deepens, those negotiations lose intensity. Decisions become simpler, not because choices disappear, but because priorities clarify. The blue power orders the inner hierarchy. What matters rises. What distracts falls. This internal order creates momentum without force. Chosen one. Your sensitivity to timing becomes more refined. You no longer feel compelled to act simply because opportunity appears. You wait for resonance. This waiting does not feel passive or hesitant. It feels discerning. I learned that moving too early often cost more energy than waiting ever did. The blue power trains patience that is active, patience that listens, patience that trusts unseen preparation. When the moment comes, you move without hesitation because alignment has already decided. Your relationship with fear also changes. Fear no longer dominates your imagination. It may still appear, but it no longer drives. I remember a time when fear shaped every projection of the future, creating outcomes that never happened. As alignment strengthened, fear lost its authority. It became information rather than instruction. The blue power teaches you to acknowledge fear without obeying it. That distinction changes everything. Chosen one. You may notice a growing ability to remain present even when uncertainty exists. You are not rushing ahead mentally, nor are you stuck reliving the past. Presence becomes your anchor. This presence is not complacency, it is attentiveness. I learned that presence allows you to respond accurately to what is actually happening rather than reacting to imagined scenarios. The blue power sharpens presence so wisdom can operate in real time. Your sense of worth becomes less negotiable. You're no longer measuring yourself against outcomes, productivity, or approval. Worth settles into something intrinsic. This does not remove ambition, it stabilizes it. I remember how freeing it felt to pursue growth without needing it to validate me. When worth is secure, growth becomes exploration rather than proof. The blue power roots worth deeply enough that expansion does not uproot identity. Chosen one. The way you process disappointment evolves. Disappointment no longer collapses hope. It informs discernment. You reflect rather than spiral. You grieve without losing vision. This emotional maturity does not harden you, it steadies you. I learned that disappointment often signals misalignment rather than failure. When interpreted correctly, it redirects without diminishing confidence. Your capacity for trust also deepens not naive trust, but anchored trust. You trust process without surrendering discernment. You trust people without abandoning boundaries. This balance takes time to learn. The blue power refines trust so it becomes relational rather than transactional. You no longer trust to be safe. You trust to be aligned. Safety follows alignment, not the other way around. Chosen one. You may find yourself less reactive to chaos around you. While others rush, panic, or overcorrect, you remain grounded. This does not mean you are unaffected. It means you are regulated. I learned that regulation is one of the clearest signs of maturity. The blue power strengthens regulation so your nervous system does not hijack your discernment. Calm becomes a resource rather than a personality trait. Your influence continues to expand quietly, not through platforms or announcements, but through consistency. People observe how you carry yourself over time. Trust builds slowly but deeply. I have seen how sustained integrity creates influence that no moment of charisma can replace. The blue power expresses authority through longevity, not spectacle. You also begin to recognize when to disengage. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Discernment teaches you where your presence matters and where your silence protects. This selectivity is not avoidance, it is stewardship. The blue power sharpens focus, so energy is invested where it produces life. Chosen one. Your inner dialogue becomes kinder without becoming complacent. Self-talk shifts from criticism to calibration. You correct without condemning. I learned that harsh self-judgment often masqueraded as discipline. True discipline is constructive. The blue power teaches you how to guide yourself with clarity rather than control. As this season continues, gratitude stabilizes further. Gratitude is no longer tied to circumstances improving. It flows from recognition of alignment itself. You become grateful for clarity, even when clarity demands change. This gratitude strengthens resilience. It keeps your heart open while your resolve grows firm. You are not rushing toward an end point. You are inhabiting a posture. The blue power is not a phase you pass through. It is a way of being you settle into. Each day, alignment becomes more natural, less effortful. You are not striving to become someone new. You are allowing what was placed within you to operate without resistance. Chosen one. This integration is quiet, steady, and deeply transformative. It may not always be visible to others, but it is unmistakable to your spirit. You are learning to live from alignment rather than anticipation, from clarity rather than pressure. And in that posture, life begins to respond with precision, not because you demand it, but because you're finally positioned to receive it. Chosen one, as the blue power continues to anchor within you, a reconciliation begins between your past, your present, and your becoming. What once felt fragmented starts to align. Regret softens into understanding. Memory becomes wisdom rather than accusation. You realize that even the detours refined your discernment and strengthened your calling. Nothing was wasted. Everything was shaping you for this clarity. Your self-trust deepens. You no longer second-guess every decision or depend on endless validation. Counsel still matters, but insecurity no longer leads. Discernment filters what you receive, and peace confirms what aligns. Effort also changes. You still work faithfully, but striving gives way to rhythm. Rest no longer feels like failure. It becomes part of obedience. Sustainability replaces exhaustion. Chosen one, your emotional world grows spacious. Joy settles. Disappointment instructs without collapsing you. You hold complexity without losing center. Belonging shifts as well. You no longer force yourself into spaces that require fragmentation. Resonance replaces approval. Authority matures into calm discernment. You stand firm without dominance and submit without fear. Your timing sharpens. You know when to wait and when to move. Stillness becomes progress. Communication becomes congruent. Your words match your life, and consistency speaks for you. Wonder returns quietly, guarding your heart from cynicism. This is readiness without urgency. You are not rushing forward. You are positioned. The blue power is establishing you so expansion arrives clean, steady, and true. Chosen one. As the blue power settles more firmly within you, something changes in how you relate to commitment and direction. You are no longer dependent on emotion to stay faithful to what you know is true. Resolve becomes steady, quiet, and reliable. I remember realizing that even on days when motivation was low, alignment remained. That is when I understood that purpose does not survive on intensity, it survives on consistency. The blue power anchors you so you can keep moving even when feelings fluctuate. You also begin to see failure differently. Failure no longer defines you or threatens your identity. It becomes information, not condemnation. Each misstep reveals refinement rather than rejection. The blue power teaches you to learn without collapsing, to adjust without shame, and to move forward without carrying unnecessary weight from the past. Chosen one. Your integrity becomes clearer and less negotiable. You are no longer tempted to bend truth for comfort or approval. Integrity feels natural because it aligns with who you are becoming. At the same time, your capacity to receive increases. You allow support, provision, and affirmation without guilt, understanding that receiving is part of stewardship, not weakness. As this settles, your faith matures into trust. Trust becomes quiet, grounded, and unshaken by delay. You no longer need constant reassurance. Alignment itself confirms the path. The blue power continues to deepen this trust, preparing you to carry what is next with clarity, humility, and peace. Chosen one. As the blue power settles into a steady rhythm within you, you may sense a profound simplicity emerging. Life feels less complicated, not because responsibilities vanish, but because alignment reduces friction. I remember noticing how many problems dissolved when I stopped arguing with reality and began cooperating with truth. The blue power does not add layers, it removes excess. It clarifies what matters, so energy is no longer wasted on resistance. Your attention becomes more intentional. You notice where your mind rests when nothing demands it. That resting place reveals alignment. When attention is no longer hijacked by anxiety or comparison, creativity and wisdom have room to surface. The blue power trains attention like a compass, gently correcting direction when it drifts. Never with force, always with clarity. Chosen one. Your relationship with desire also matures. Desire is no longer impulsive or urgent. It becomes informed. You want what builds, not what distracts. I learned that refined desire is one of the clearest signs of spiritual maturity. When desire aligns with purpose, temptation loses power. The blue power refines desire, so longing supports destiny rather than competes with it. You may notice an increasing ease in decision-making. Choices no longer feel like forks that threaten everything. They feel like steps within a wider path. This ease does not come from certainty of outcome. It comes from trust in process. I learned that trusting process reduces fear of mistakes. When alignment is present, correction is gentle rather than costly. Chosen one, your capacity for silence deepens. Silence is no longer something to escape. It becomes a place of renewal. In silence, you hear yourself clearly. In that clarity, truth surfaces without debate. The blue power uses silence to recalibrate perspective, reminding you that wisdom often arrives when words step aside. Your sense of gratitude continues to anchor you. Gratitude becomes less expressive and more embodied. You live thankful rather than speak it frequently. This embodied gratitude steadies joy and guards against entitlement. I learned that gratitude protects alignment by keeping the heart open even as responsibility increases. You may also sense a growing freedom from outcomes. You still care deeply, but attachment loosens. Effort remains, anxiety recedes. This freedom does not reduce commitment, it enhances it. When attachment fades, focus sharpens. The blue power teaches you to invest fully without clinging. Chosen one, your awareness of connection deepens. You recognize how your internal state affects environments around you. Calm spreads. Clarity invites clarity. I learned that leadership often happens without instruction. Presence influences more than direction. The blue power amplifies presence, so it communicates stability naturally. As this phase settles, you may feel a quiet readiness without urgency. You are not waiting anxiously. You are prepared attentively. This readiness is calm and flexible. It does not demand timelines. It trusts unfolding. I learned that readiness attracts opportunity more effectively than striving ever could. Your inner alignment now supports outer movement. When action comes, it will feel natural rather than forced. There is no rush to announce or perform. Life will respond in due order. The blue power is patient. It establishes before it expands. Chosen one. This integration is gentle and enduring. It does not require intensity to maintain. It requires presence. Each day you choose alignment, the foundation strengthens. You are not becoming distant or detached. You are becoming clear. And in that clarity, peace becomes reliable direction, becomes steady, and purpose expresses itself quietly through the way you live. Chosen one. There are no coincidences in the spirit, and the fact that you are still here is proof that this moment was written for you. Your sealed prophecy is opening, your hidden scroll is being revealed, and you are standing in your exact kairos moment, the appointed time marked on heaven's clock, before you were ever born. What has been dormant is awakening, what was delayed is aligning, and what was hidden is now coming into the light. Anointed One Heaven is affirming you in this hour. The blue power placed inside you was not given to impress the world, but to fulfill assignment, restore order, and release truth where confusion once ruled. You are not behind, you are not late, and you are not forgotten. You are prepared, positioned, and backed by divine authority. Let every doubt fall away as peace settles in your spirit and clarity anchors your steps. May your path be blessed with discernment, courage, and obedience. May your voice carry weight, your presence carry light, and your life reflect the glory of what God has written about you. Stay faithful, remain aligned, and move forward with gratitude for what is now unfolding. Chosen one, receive this commissioning and walk boldly into what has been waiting for you. If your spirit bears witness, you may leave a word of confirmation below and remain connected as this journey continues. Go in peace and walk in the fullness of the blue power entrusted to you.